Patrick Lencioni talked about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and showed us our dysfunctional team pyramid, which for those that haven't seen it, I recommend you look into that. But what I'm going to show you here today is just how we've taken that pyramid and making it into a much more positive, aspirational view of what we need to be a highly functional and high-performing team. So what sits at the foot of all high-performing teams that are highly functional is this notion of trust. So a team that doesn't trust each other is going to find it really, really difficult to succeed. So have a think about, how do we get to that total trust? How do we know that each of us will behave and contribute to the team in a way that we feel is appropriate? You know, how can we rely on each other? How can we trust that we're all credible and we can do our parts of the job? How can we be sure that the individuals will be serving the greater good of us as a team rather than just of their own agenda? Think about all those components that kind of lead to a highly trustworthy environment. And the reason that trust is so important is that we have to move to a point where we have an insistence on debate. So we've heard in dysfunctional teams how conflict and disagreement is good, and that's true. That's true even in army team models. They talk about that as well. But so for us to be functional, we have to insist on debate. So how do we get to a point where, when we're talking and working as a team, that we encourage debate, we demand it in some instances, and in fact sometimes we refuse to move forward if we don't have it, because we know that when we debate and challenge each other, that richness of thinking usually gets us to better outcomes and better decisions. It's key though, then once we get past that point, to get to the point where we actually commit to decisions. And I think the key here is that once we've been through that debating stage, is that we have to make a decision. And sometimes not everybody will agree, but we have to create a consensus. But the real key here is, even if you were one of the people that may not have gone that way, as part of the team, that you do commit to it and we go forward on a decision as one voice and one team. Particularly important as leaders, that when we go back into a business, because if as a group of leaders we're not seen to be together on a decision, then very quickly the people around us will start to see that and will question whether they should be doing it. And if we're not united on the decision, then why should they follow? Why should they believe this is what we should be doing? And once we've got to that point, then we can begin to start to demand some accountability. We should, as a team, be holding each other account to the parts that we agree to do for the team. So where is that accountability? How do we hold ourselves to that accountability? What do we do when people don't deliver on their part of the accountability? Because at the top of this functional pyramid is that attention to shared results. It doesn't matter what your individual objectives are. What must sit above that is where are we going together? What overall objectives are we trying to achieve? And your individual objectives must be just part of getting us to that point. So the overarching focus has to be on those shared results. So that's the functional team pyramid. Really think about, how do we get a group of people that truly trust each other? How do we drive and insist on debate? How do we commit to action, and regardless of what our own personal thoughts are, that we commit to that as one voice and one team? How do we then hold each other accountable to do what we need to do? And how do we make sure that everything we do is focused into one set of shared results?